Imagine a world drowning in corruption, where darkness ruled and hope was lost. A world on the brink of destruction. One man was chosen. One man dared to believe, and when the flood came, only those who listened survived. This is more than just a story. It's a warning, a lesson, and a promise. Will you be ready when the storms of life come? The story of Noah's Ark isn't just about the past. It's a message for today. Stay tuned, because this story might just change the way you see the world. The world was not as it had been in the beginning. Once, it had been a paradise, a garden filled with beauty, harmony, and the presence of the Creator. But that time was long past. Sin had multiplied upon the earth, growing like weeds in fertile soil, spreading from village to village, from city to city. The descendants of Cain, the son of Adam who had murdered his own brother, ruled over vast territories, building kingdoms rooted in violence and greed. Men no longer sought the face of God. Instead, they bowed before false idols, offering their children upon blood-stained altars. The ground, once rich and abundant, was now soaked with the cries of the innocent. The weak were slaughtered, the strong ruled with cruelty, and the air was filled with the sounds of drunken revelry, wailing, and battle. The earth groaned under the weight of sin. But among the wicked, there was one man who walked in righteousness, one man who had not given in to corruption. His name was Noah. Noah was different from the men of his time. He had been raised to fear the Lord, to keep his commandments, and to walk in the ways of righteousness. While others bowed before golden idols, Noah worshipped the unseen God of his ancestors, the Creator of the heavens and the earth, the one who had breathed life into man and had formed the stars with his word. He lived far from the cities, in the hills beyond the great rivers. He worked the land with his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, teaching them to labor with honest hands and to speak truthfully. But even in the wilderness, he could not escape the evil of the world. Every year, travelers brought news of the cities. Men who took whatever they desired, women, gold, and slaves, without remorse. Children born only to be sacrificed at the altars of false gods. Men who claimed they were greater than the Creator himself, declaring themselves as gods over the earth. The stories filled Noah with sorrow. "How long, O Lord," he whispered as he gazed at the sky, "how long will you allow this wickedness to continue?" And one night, the answer came. It began as a stirring in the wind, a deep presence that seemed to settle over the land, pressing against Noah's spirit. Then, a voice like thunder, yet like a whisper, filled his ears. "Noah." He fell to his knees. "The earth is filled with violence because of them. Every thought of man's heart is evil continually. My spirit will not strive with them forever." The voice carried great sorrow, a pain deeper than any Noah had ever known. "I will put an end to all flesh. I will send a great flood upon the earth. Every living thing that walks upon the ground shall be wiped away." Noah's breath caught in his throat. Destruction? All of them? Yet the voice continued, "But you, Noah, you have found favor in my sight. You alone are righteous before me. Therefore, I will preserve you and your household." Tears streamed down Noah's face. "Lord, what must I do?" And then God gave him the command that would change history forever. Build an ark. The instructions were clear. The ark was to be built of gopher wood, sealed with pitch inside and out. It was to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, a massive vessel unlike anything the world had ever seen. Inside there would be 3 decks with compartments for animals and food storage. A single door would be placed on its side, and a window at the top for light and air. For a long moment, Noah was silent. He had never built anything so large. He was not a great shipmaker, nor did he know how to prepare for such a flood. And yet, he obeyed. The next morning he called his sons. "Shem, Ham, Japheth, come." They gathered before him, their faces puzzled as he unrolled the animal hide parchment upon which he had sketched the ark's dimensions. "The Lord has spoken," Noah said. "A flood is coming and we must build this." His sons exchanged glances. "A flood?" Ham asked. "But the rivers have never risen past their banks. The world has never seen such a flood before, Noah agreed, but it will come, and we must be ready. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Shem nodded. Then let's start. The sound of hammering and cutting wood filled the air for weeks, then months, then years. At first, people came to watch out of curiosity. They gathered on the hillsides, whispering among themselves. What is that madman doing? He claims the gods have spoken to him. A flood? Has he lost his mind? Laughter echoed in the fields. But as the years passed and Noah continued his work, undeterred, the laughter turned to mockery. Men shouted insults from the road. Where is this flood, Noah? Perhaps your God has forgotten you. You are a fool, old man. Noah never responded. He only kept building. Then one day, something strange happened. It began with a rustling in the forests, a stirring in the fields. Then they came. Lions walked alongside lambs. Elephants lumbered beside foxes. Birds darkened the sky, flying in unison. The people of the city watched in stunned silence. This is impossible, a merchant whispered. Yet the impossible had come to pass. 2 by 2, they entered the ark. The people of the city stopped laughing. The city was silent. For years Noah had labored under the sun, his hands raw from hammering and lifting. He had endured mockery, laughter, and scorn, yet he had never wavered. Now, as he stood at the entrance of the ark, watching the last of the animals settle into their compartments, his heart was heavy. He turned to face the people one last time. Turn from your wickedness. Noah's voice rang out across the crowd gathered near the construction site. The Lord is merciful. He is giving you one last chance. Come, enter the ark and be saved. A few murmured among themselves, but most laughed. After all these years, you still believe this? A merchant scoffed. Where is this flood? I see no storm clouds. An older man stepped forward, shaking his head. Noah, come down from that boat. You are a fool. The gods of the earth are with us, not your invisible God. Noah's sons stood behind him, watching in silence. They had seen this all before, but this time felt different. A strange hush fell over the land. The sky, once bright and blue, seemed to darken. A warm breeze swept through the trees, unnatural in its stillness. And then, the voice of the Almighty came again. Noah, enter the ark, you and your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Tears welled in Noah's eyes. Slowly he turned to his family. Shem, Ham, and Japheth stepped inside. Their wives followed. Noah's own wife placed a hand on his shoulder before entering. Noah gave the crowd one final look. Please, he whispered, come with us. But no one moved. Noah stepped inside, and then the door shut. Not by human hands, but by the hand of God. At first, it was a single drop. A child playing in the streets laughed, looking up as a cool raindrop landed on his forehead. Then another, then 1,000, then a torrent. Lightning split the sky, a crackling white spear of fire tearing through the heavens. The wind roared as if the very breath of God swept across the land. A woman screamed. Then the fountains of the deep burst open. Water erupted from the ground, violent and unstoppable. Rivers overflowed, sweeping away livestock and homes. The streets became raging torrents, carrying away carts, grain sacks, and people too slow to escape. Panic set in. To the high places, a man shouted, dragging his wife behind him. The laughter was gone. The mockery had ceased. Now there was only terror. The ark lifted from the ground, rocking violently as the waters rose. Inside, Noah's family clung to the walls as the thunder roared outside. It's really happening, Ham whispered, his face pale. Noah took a deep breath, steadying himself. The Lord is with us. Do not be afraid. But outside, the world was drowning. People pounded on the ark's sides. Noah, open the door, let us in, children screamed. Men who had once mocked Noah begged for mercy, but it was too late. The waters rose higher. People scrambled to the tops of houses, to the tallest trees, but the flood did not stop. Days passed, then weeks, and the earth was silent. The world that once was no more. The rain had stopped, but the world was now a vast ocean with no land in sight. Inside the ark, time passed slowly. The animals settled into their routines. Noah's sons fed them in shifts, carrying water from barrels, spreading straw in their enclosures. Noah spent his days praying, waiting, trusting. But doubt crept into the hearts of some. "How long will we be on this ark?" Japheth asked one evening. "Will we ever see land again?" Noah placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "The Lord has not forgotten us, my son. He will lead us to safety." Yet even Noah's faith was tested in the long, endless days at sea. Would they truly find land again? Then one morning the ark shook. It was subtle but unmistakable. The ark had stopped drifting. "We've struck something," Shem said. Noah stepped out onto the deck. The waters had begun to recede. In the distance, jagged mountain peaks pierced through the surface. Hope stirred. Noah released a raven. It soared into the sky, circling once before vanishing into the clouds. Days later, he sent out a dove. It returned, unable to find dry land. Another week passed. Noah sent out the dove again. This time, it returned with an olive leaf in its beak. The world was coming back to life. Tears filled Noah's eyes. God has not forgotten us. The day finally came. Noah and his family stepped onto dry ground for the first time in months. The ark rested upon Mount Ararat, surrounded by a landscape still damp with the waters of judgment. The air smelled fresh, clean, renewed. Noah fell to his knees and built an altar. And the Lord spoke once more. "Never again will I destroy the earth with a flood. I make a covenant with you and your descendants." Noah lifted his eyes to the sky. And there, a rainbow stretched across the heavens. A promise, a new beginning. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh beginnings. Noah stood at the edge of the ark's great door, his weathered hands resting on the wooden frame. For over a year, they had lived upon the waters. Now, finally, they would step onto land once more. Behind him, his family waited, his wife, his sons, their wives. They had survived. With slow, steady steps, Noah placed his foot onto the damp soil of Mount Ararat. The ground was firm beneath him. The earth had been cleansed. The moment was silent, heavy with the weight of history. A world had ended, and another was beginning. Noah turned to his family. "Come," he said softly. "It is time." One by one they followed, and then the animals came. The ark groaned as its doors opened fully, revealing the vast, open world beyond. The animals stepped into the light, blinking as they beheld their new home. The lions stretched, their golden fur glistening in the morning sun. The elephants stomped forward, trumpeting as they felt the solid ground beneath their feet once more. Birds, long confined to the safety of the ark, burst into the sky in an explosion of color and sound. They scattered into the valleys and mountains, instinct guiding them to their new homes. Noah watched in silence, knowing that this was the beginning of something far greater than himself. A fresh start, a second chance. Before doing anything else, Noah knew he had to honor the one who had saved them. Gathering stones from the ground, he built an altar upon the mountain. With trembling hands he placed wood upon it and prepared a sacrifice. His sons stood beside him, watching as he lifted his face to the heavens. "Lord God," Noah whispered, "you have been merciful. You have kept your promise, and you have saved us from destruction. We offer this sacrifice in thanksgiving, for you alone are our salvation." As the fire consumed the offering, a warm wind stirred around them, a presence unseen yet deeply felt. And then God spoke, "Never again will I destroy the earth with a flood. Never again will all flesh be wiped from the land in this way." A deep peace settled over Noah's heart. Then the sky changed. The clouds above parted. A misty light broke through. And then a great bow of colors stretched across the sky. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. The colors shimmered, reflecting off the damp earth, a promise written across the heavens. Noah's wife gasped. tears in her eyes. His sons gazed upward in awe, and the Lord spoke again. "This is the sign of my covenant with you, and with all generations to come. When you see the rainbow in the clouds, remember, I will never again send a flood to destroy the earth." A promise, a symbol of mercy. Noah fell to his knees. "Thank you, Lord," he whispered. And as the rainbow stretched across the sky, hope was born anew. The days that followed were filled with work. Noah and his sons began to settle the land, building simple homes from the timber of the ark. The first night, they gathered around a fire, speaking of what would come next. "We must plant," Shem said. "The land is fresh, the soil is new. If we plant, we will have food." "Animals roam freely now," Japheth added. "We must begin to tame them, to raise herds again." Ham, always the restless one, frowned. "And what of others? The world was filled with people once. Are we alone?" Noah was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. "No, my son, we are not alone. The world begins again with us." And so they worked. They planted vineyards and fields. They built homes, raising their families in the shadow of Mount Ararat. They learned once more to live upon the earth, to respect it as their forefather Adam had. The world was young again. As the years passed, Noah's family grew. His sons' wives bore children, and soon the valleys were filled with laughter and life. From them, the nations of the world would be born. Shem's descendants would become the fathers of the Hebrew people chosen by God to carry forth his promises. Ham's descendants would settle in lands far and wide, building great cities and empires. Japheth's descendants would spread across distant lands, from the hills of Europe to the edges of the known world. From one family, the earth was repopulated. The nations of the world had begun. Noah lived for many years after the flood, watching his family grow, his land prosper. But he never forgot. On quiet nights he would sit upon the hillside, gazing at the sky, remembering the voice of God, the storm, the ark, the promise. He had seen the end of one world and the beginning of another. He had walked in obedience. He had witnessed God's mercy and justice. And when his time came, Noah passed peacefully, knowing that his story would be told for generations to come. A story of faith, a story of judgment, a story of salvation. As the storm clouds cleared and the waters receded, Noah and his family stepped into a new world, one that had been wiped clean by the judgment of God, but filled with the promise of a fresh beginning. The ark, once a vessel of survival, became a symbol of faith and obedience. A reminder that in the darkest times, those who trust in God will find refuge. The rainbow in the sky was more than just a beautiful sight. It was a covenant, a promise that never again would the earth be destroyed by a flood. It stood as a symbol of God's mercy and his faithfulness, a sign that even when mankind falls, there is always a chance for redemption. From Noah's sons came the nations of the world, and from his obedience, humanity was given a second chance. But the story of Noah is more than just an ancient tale. It is a message for us today. When the world is filled with corruption, will you stand for righteousness? When others doubt, will you walk in obedience? When storms rise, will you trust in God's protection? Noah's Ark is not just a story of the past. It is a call to faith, perseverance, and trust in God's promises. No matter how great the storm, no matter how high the waters rise, remember, God always provides a way of salvation, and his promises never fail. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible biblical stories that bring ancient wisdom to life. What lessons did you take from Noah's story? Let us know in the comments below. And always remember, faith over fear, trust over doubt. God's promises stand forever. See you in the next video. God bless.